How's it going, everyone? It's Monday, which means another regional event in the books. This past weekend, we had RLCS Spring Split for North America get underway for NA Regional 1, also known as the Verizon 5G Ultra Cup. So in today's video, we're going to be recapping pretty much as quickly as possible. There's a lot of matches. I mean, there was like 8 hours worth of broadcast. It's just a long day again, but lots of matches to cover, a lot of things to recap, and some unfortunate results for some teams due to internet issues. What's up, everybody? Lawler here, your inside source for all things Rocket League. Before we get into the video, as always, if you enjoy the content, give it a thumbs up, hit subscribe, notifications, all that fun stuff. We just hit 30,000 subs. Massive thank you to all of you. But any links you need, any information you need, in the description down below. This past weekend, we had NA Regional 1 get underway for the Spring Split, and with that, 20 teams, some coming from open qualifiers, some pre-qualified. The first 12 are going to be coming from a overall rank standings. The top 12, which were Energy, Envy, Space Station, Rogue, FaZe Clan. Congrats to the Peeps, G2 Esports, Kansas City Pioneers, Alpine, Pittsburgh Knights, Sonics, Ghost Gaming, and Version 1, because Version 1 won the tiebreaker over Charlotte Phoenix, makes the 12th and final team. Charlotte Phoenix, Pride Stark, Xset, United, Stromboli, Nefarious, Oxygen Esports, and 72PC came from the qualifiers and are our remaining teams. So we've got 20 teams total, and those are broken down into 4 groups of 5. The groups are as stands alongside their results. In Group A, you had Energy, Kansas City Pioneers, Pittsburgh Knights, Oxygen, and Stromboli in that order as results. Energy going 4-0 with Stromboli going 0-4 and getting eliminated. I did my predictions on stream earlier last week and got all of the predictions for the number 1 and the number 5 correct, except for Group D, which I'll talk about in a bit here. But the big confusion I had was who were the results going to end up in favor of in the spots 2, 3, and 4. I was pretty convinced on who I knew was going to progress into the knockout stage and in the finals. But ultimately, who and where the places were going to be for seeding purposes is kind of all a miss. So in Group A, Kansas City Pioneers show that they are trying to bounce back and do better and better, which is very telling to how the rest of their tournament went. And then everybody else kind of battled. I thought Oxygen Esports, the former Jamal Jabari team, was going to do a little bit better, but they were able to get a win over Stromboli in day 1. So that gives them the advantage with a 1-3, and they progress forward. In Group B, you've got Team Envy, Sonics, United, 72PC, and Alpine Esports. This is the first time that we're actually getting to see United with Dapper in a professional environment. They unfortunately go 1-3. 72PC and Alpine, I was pretty convinced that 72PC was going to be able to put up a fight, but I didn't think they were going to win out. They actually end up progressing with a 1-3 record because they do get a victory. So not only do they get the head-to-head advantage over Alpine, but also game differential. So you have 3 teams, United, 72PC, and Alpine, all tied at 1-3. So then it goes to game differential. And then if that doesn't go through for the tiebreaker, it goes to the team versus the other team in a head-to-head, and whoever wins that also gets it. So 72PC wins by game differential by 2 games, and they progress forward. Alpine Esports getting eliminated very early on. Big shock to them. Been a team that primarily usually stays in the top 10 conversation, but have been struggling quite a bit lately. In Group C, you have the new version of the Peeps in FaZe Clan, Version 1, Charlotte Phoenix, Space Station Gaming, and Pride Stark Empire. Pride Stark Empire going 0-4, pretty predictable on that one. They do take 1 game off of a team, which is Version 1, and then go -11 in game differential. So pretty rough results for them. FaZe Clan up at the top. Congrats again to the Peeps. And Version 1 look really, really good in the group stage. It started off really hot with Version 1 actually ended up playing Space Station into a Game 5, an exciting one, and then ended up beating and crushing the former local, now Charlotte Phoenix squad in a 3-0. But yeah, what was the exciting thing about this was these groups are split into 2 days. So day 0 is all done by the organizations. The teams themselves actually broadcast the matches. And then day 1, which is the RLCS broadcast, which is on Friday, right before the match between FaZe and Version 1, they made the announcement and really worked well with Psyonix to say, hey, let's make this thing big. So it was really cool to see the announcement happen on broadcast, which gave it that extra love. And the players then went into a nail-biter of a match, and they do get their first victory over Version 1. 3 overtimes, super close, came down to the wire, as it always does with Version 1. But FaZe, again, is now 8-0 over Version 1 and has solidified that they are version 1's kryptonite. For some reason, version 1 can just not beat the crazy chaos that is FaZe. Over to Group D then, we've got G2, Rogue, Ghost Gaming, Xset, and Nefarious. Pretty expected that Nefarious was going to be the odd one out on this one. I was actually pretty surprised by Rogue's results after Rogue ended up dropping to Xset. That was the one to me that really caught me off guard. But at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. As long as you are in the top 2 and have a upper seed qualification, all the matches are going to be pretty tough. You're going to be playing, I mean, you look at this. If you're Rogue, you're playing either FaZe Clan, version 1, Sonics, Envy, Kansas City Pioneers, or Energy. Like, none of those matches are easy. So whether you're 1 or 2 seed, ultimately you're still going to get a tough match. You're just trying to avoid the number 1s overall, which are usually in most circumstances the top 4 in the region. But it's actually G2. For those that don't know, this is technically and could possibly be Rizzo's last and final regional as a competitive player. He has announced his retirement, and they are going to be using Drees in the grid next week, I think is when it starts, on the 29th, if I'm correct. So there was definitely a mentality change, and you can see it in the players' cameras, where G2 looks like they're just laughing, having a good time, and just enjoying the fact that, you know what, this is the kind of the last hurrah for Rizzo. So a unique vibe that gave G2 kind of a leg up. They started playing really well. They still plagued a little bit by accuracy. A lot of their shots still a little bit off the mark, and I don't know if it's because of the non-serious nature, but as things started to get more and more serious in the tournament, so did they. Either way, big surprise here for me. Again, Rogue dropping 2 matches, 1 to G2, which is understandable. G2 still a very solid team. And then losing to Xset. They got swept by Xset at the beginning of day 1, which was really surprising. With that said, that gives us our 16 teams. That brings us then into the knockout gauntlet, which is day 2. And that is going to be a double elimination. All the teams that are in the high seed only need to win once to progress. Those teams are Rogue, Envy, Sonics, and G2. Version 1 gets absolutely smacked by Envy, and Envy looks really, really good. FaZe Clan losing to Sonics was a surprise. Rolled is coming in clutch as not only their coach, but also their player. And then Rogue also beating Energy. This seems to be a really fun developing storyline where right now, arguably, I think Energy and Rogue can be considered kind of the top dogs in the region based upon performances and how they've been playing. And I think you're going to see that rivalry, instead of being Energy G2, be between Energy and Rogue as of now. So pretty excited to see how that one develops, because those two teams seem to go up against each other now in the end. And hopefully that continues. On that, everything going as expected, I would say, in the lower rounds where the high seeds are winning through. Xset really turning on when it matters, end up beating Pittsburgh Knights, so they drop out early. But other than that, things, I would say, yeah, pretty notable. Energy over Charlotte Phoenix is expected. Version 1 over Ghost is expected. FaZe over Xset is expected. The only one that isn't is Kansas City Pioneers over Space Station. Even though it is a 3-0 clean sweep in front of Kansas City Pioneers, it was Arsenal who is having internet connectivity issues, where he was unable to play. So they do end up playing with Sathu, who's not a bad pick. It does go 3-0, 3-2 OT, and then 2-1. So it does get closer and closer. But unfortunately, when you're not playing with your starter, and Arsenal being such a key piece to the team, they do fall short. So SSG does fall short in the knockout and does not make it into the playoffs. Last but not least, we get into the playoffs, which is another 7-hour broadcast day. 8 teams, best of 7s in every single match. And a lot of them go the distance in the very beginning. I think we were roughly 3.5 hours in, and we are just starting to kind of get into the headway of the Envy and Kansas City Pioneers match. But if we take a look at the bracket, you got Rogue FaZe, G2 version 1, Envy Kansas City Pioneers, and Sonics Energy. Up first, Rogue and FaZe Clan, a back and forth affair. I do think there is certain teams that match up better against others, and I do think FaZe matches up relatively well against Rogue in Rogue's playstyle and are able to keep it close. A lot of that has to do with not only AJ being able to counter First Killer, but it's Illusion's defense. I think FaZe's defense is one of the better ones out there and not talked about enough. And even though when they're on offense, they look absolutely incredible, the ability to handle a lot of the pressure that Rogue brings, I think makes FaZe really, really talented. So they put up a really good fight. FaZe ends up dropping short just barely where the last two come in. You're starting to see the implementation as well of tactical timeouts, where teams now in the final day, in the playoff day, in those best of 7s, have the ability to call for a timeout once per series to take the minute break in between matches and extend it by an extra minute, giving them 2 minutes total, which for some people it worked out really well, and for others it did not. In the next match is G2 and version 1, and this one starts off great for G2, you know, 2-1, 1-0, and 2-1. All 1-goal games, and even though it is a 3-0 at the beginning for G2, it is not all that convincing. It doesn't look all that solidified in the regards to how things are happening. So what ends up happening then is then V1 wins a couple more in a row, and then G2 makes a timeout, and then version 1 wins another one, and then they take a timeout, and then they end up losing 1-0 in game 7. So G2 is able to hold off the reverse sweep. If you look at the clip from the very last game, roughly a couple minutes in, Calm is in the back left of his defense trying to pick up a boost pad. And when he came into my chat and talked about it, he's like, yeah, there was nobody nearby. I didn't see any of my teammates grab it, so I assumed it was going to respawn quickly. Chicago then turned around and went for a demo on him, which made him jump. And now he's jumping straight up with no momentum and no way to get to the net. And even with the 12 boost pad, he can't make a save. That is the only goal in the series and is very telling of this series all over. Every single game except for game 5 is a 1-goal game differential. It was a really close series and good to see that resilience from version 1. The casters didn't really give version 1 any credit, so it was exciting to see version 1 put up a fight like they have done so many other times on the broadcast that we cover. But ultimately G2 playing really well, and it was exciting to see that despite, you know, the having fun and hanging out, one of the best plays I think from the group stage or the knockout stage was JNAPS delaying a touch and then hitting a flip reset double touch off the backboard. So they still have it in them, still a very talented team, even with the Rizzo retirement coming up. But it makes me excited for their future that they're still making, you know, top 4 despite that situation. You then go to Envy Kansas City Pioneers and another game 7 banger. Envy and Kansas City Pioneers going back and forth. Shoutouts to Beast Mode because he did live up to the name. Apparently the new coach is definitely helping for Kansas City Pioneers because they look back on track. They look absolutely lethal. Memory, I still think, is one of the most underrated players in all of North America and does not get the credit he deserves. Rapid is still a little bit weird on rotations, and I know he knows I criticize him a little bit for it, but the thing is players really shouldn't care about what people like myself and others say. As long as your playstyle is working and your teammates and your coach are happy with it, that is all that matters. And even though I do think Rapid's rotations are a little bit unconventional and he may cut off players and do things that I don't agree with, if he's able to play a roamer role and the 2 teammates that he has are comfortable with that and it is effective, then so be it. It's working out and it's working in their favor. The nice thing is in this circumstance, Beast Mode really carries it to that next level. Rapid continues to set up passes as well as be a nuisance on offense, which forces teams like Envy, who are super defensive heavy, to respect that, and it gives them some space and they're able to tie it through. So Kansas City Pioneers puts up a really good battle against Envy. I thought there was going to be more overtimes in this series, but it basically felt like they were just taking turns scoring. It does eventually come down to a bunch of 1-goal games, and in the 7th one, it is an OT 2 minutes. And Beast Mode again, man. You are definitely getting my nod because you played absolutely incredible in this series. Last but definitely not least, we then got Sonics versus Energy, and Energy, honestly, it is a very close series, 3-2, 3-2, and then 3-0 for Energy after timeouts. And then it is 2-0, another OT, and then 3-1. Roll Diz and T. Corell played phenomenally. I would personally probably give it to T. Corell for an MVP in my personal, but Roll Diz and what he's doing as supposedly being a coach, but yet playing like a great starter. I talked about in a couple weeks ago about how I think when Roll Diz with United, him retiring came a little bit early. Thought he was much better than the team that he was on, and you are seeing that being forced into recognition, and it's credit to the player. Roll Diz is playing really well. He's setting up players. He's being quick and aggressive and lack of hesitation. Great opportunities infield with passes from like the top left to set up his teammate. And he does it not just with a back pass, but off the backboard. So Justin can't like, there's so many good things to take away from what Roll Diz is doing. But T. Corell just played a really clean game. He was everywhere he needed to be and put a lot of really important shots in the net. So Sonics, in probably the biggest upset of the tournament, ends up winning 4-1 over Energy in the quarterfinals to move on. And with that said, the only team that has ever won a regional left is Rogue. We jump back into the semifinals. We got Rogue versus G2, and Rogue, despite G2 putting up a really good fight, just overwhelms. First killer, you got to find a way to shut him down. That's pretty much what it comes to it. G2 does a relatively good job. A lot of 1-goal games. You're talking the last 3 are all 1-goal games with 2 OTs. So G2 fighting tooth and nail for it, but Rogue just having that little bit of extra to get it done. In the other semifinal, it is a 4-0 clean sweep between Kansas City Pioneers and Sonics, which is a bracket that no one expected, but credit to both teams. Very important for the points, especially for Kansas City Pioneers. Right now, Kansas City Pioneers and G2 are both fighting for that number 6 spot, and with Kansas City Pioneers moving into the grand finals and G2 falling back in the semifinals, that is a jump in points by quite a bit. I think it's like 70 plus points that they're getting out of it. So being able to move up into that position helps out immensely. Last but not least is the grand finals. And I don't know how to say this without it being negative, but as soon as I saw who was going through into the bracket, I personally think that even though I thought Kansas City Pioneers and Sonics were playing extremely well, I look at the Rogue team and the other side of the bracket, and if it wasn't Envy and if it wasn't Energy, I personally didn't have a feeling that either of the teams were going to be able to stand up and compete. I still think they could have taken a couple games, which Kansas City Pioneers does take one, and they keep it pretty close in a lot of the games. 1 OT in game 1, 1-0 in game 2. Game 4 was 1-0, so they do keep it extremely close, but long-term against a team like Rogue, they will whittle you down. Their offense is frustrating to play against. It's very aggressive. It's very in your face. And after a certain period of time, even though Kansas City Pioneers does have a unique approach to the game, what Rogue does is that to another level. The long-standing veteran talent with a ton of experience and ability to adapt from what we see in the past, talking primarily about Envy in that regard, and Energy and the ability to keep up with the mechanics of Rogue, give them a better shot. And even though Kansas City Pioneers is fast and aggressive and chaotic and thrive off that, and it's what I've deemed as a controlled chaos in the past, Rogue just takes it to a whole nother level and overwhelmed. So in this one, it wasn't even a contest. It felt like Rogue was 100% control the entire time and just did not feel under pressure whatsoever. And they get back-to-back regional wins. So we had a lot of questions. Is Rogue the best team in North America? Is First Killer the best player in North America? And I can't necessarily agree to those just yet, but I will say they are ascending at a very rapid rate, and it is most definitely not a fluke. That is going to wrap it up for your recap for an NA Regional 1. If you guys do have any questions, comments, concerns, as always, make sure you drop those down below. I will have a comment questionnaire mailbag thing coming up sometime this week, possibly power rankings as well in the near future. I know a lot of you have been missing out on that. Plus, we've got a lot to talk about. We've had a major and a regional, and we're about to get the grid underway as well. So most likely power rankings coming up real soon. But that is going to do it for this video. Questions, comments, concerns, again, as I mentioned, down below, along with a link in the description to all my socials and everything else I talked about today. And if you enjoy the content while you're down there, give it a thumbs up, hit subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Peace.